Now, despite record autumn rainfall, you know what you mean about that, there are more water shortages on the way. The water companies are threatening higher bills, more frequent hosepipe bans, unless we go all the way back to 1970s levels of water usage. Let me tell you, I lived through the three-day week and water levels and droughts in the 70s, and we didn't wash very often in those days, I'm telling you that. Joining me live is Andrew O'Brien, Director of Policy and Impact at the think tank Demos. Andrew, please explain. I mean, how can we have this much water falling from the sky and not have enough of it to do anything with?
It could only happen in Britain, couldn't it, Mike?
It really could, yeah.
Basically, we haven't built enough reservoirs. So we haven't built a reservoir in this country since 1992, but the population's gone up by a huge amount. We've got more products using water and more amounts of water, power showers, bigger dishwashers, that kind of thing. Yeah. And we haven't kept our plumbers and everybody up to date in terms of training and development. So we've got leaky fixtures and fittings in your home, and as a consequence of that, we're not using the water resources that we've been blessed with as efficiently as we possibly can do. And if we want to make sure we can live the lifestyles that we've all grown accustomed to, and I don't want us to go back to the 70s, Mike, we've got to get better at water efficiency, and that requires everyone coming together and making a bit of effort.
But isn't it the effort and the people coming together bit, not necessarily the fault of the consumer, it's the fault of these companies? I mean, I go all the way back to about 2010, 2011, when I remember Thames Water was ripping up the streets of London saying, oh, we're fixing all the pipes because we've got the Olympics coming and we want to make sure that there aren't any leaks going on anymore. Now, they're still working on that, and that was probably minimum, 14 years ago. And the leaks are still going on. We now leak some amount ridiculous, 80 billion litres a day into the ground.
Look, I mean, what's the famous saying? I wouldn't start from here, but we are where we are. And, I think we've got to look going forward. I think everyone's got a role to play. The water companies definitely have to, and some of them are promising record levels of investment. But government, I mean, we haven't had. We've got ministers for housing, we've got ministers for this, we've got ministers for that. We've not had a proper dedicated minister for water for many years. The current minister for water is also the minister for rural growth. As we outline in our report, just keeping the taps flowing is itself a full-time job. And when you ask most people, what are the fundamentals in life? They would say food, shelter, and water. So we need to get on top of this. We also need the people who make our dishwashers and washing machines to make sure there's water efficient as possible. We need house builders to make sure that we're using water efficiently as possible. And yes, as consumers, it's the obvious stuff, Mike, but when you're brushing your teeth, you turn your taps off, don't use your dishwasher unless it's kind of fully stacked up. I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody of not doing those from time to time. But if we can do that as consumers, if the water companies keep to their plans to invest, if government gets its act together and really focuses on this, then together we can make sure we keep the taps flowing.
A lot of people thought that privatising the water companies was a good idea, but it doesn't look so good now because they're not very efficient. And in fact, they're so useless, it's almost as if they're actually public sector organisations. Can't we make them better somehow?
Well, look, I mean, I think, like anything in life, that some of the companies are really good, some of them are not so good, or
Have you got? I can't think of one that's good. Can you? Come on.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't in this report go into evaluating the water companies, so I don't feel qualified to comment. But look, I think we've all got to raise our game, Mike. And I think you make a good point that when we privatised it, I think we just assumed that water would be something that somebody else would do. The water companies will fix this. And you're right. They've got to live up to their responsibilities. But ultimately, as well, government's got to take some of the blame because we don't spend a penny on water at a kind of national government level, even though we subsidise housing and the road system and everything else like that. We haven't given the planning permission to build the infrastructure that we need. We are now doing some urgent things, like we're looking at better labelling of products, to make sure that consumers can see what's water efficient, what isn't. But we need to do many, many more things like that. So, we've all got to take a bit of responsibility. And privatisation, yes, I think you're absolutely right, Mike. I think a lot of people thought, privatise it, everything will work out fine. It's not worked out that way. And
it hasn't. A lot of the fact that reservoirs have not been built has been as a result of sort of net zero policies. The fact that apparently we're told that building a reservoir is unenvironmentally sound. It's not environmentally friendly. So you're never going to get it past the local council. You're never going to get it past the government.
Well, that's why we need a strategic voice in this. For example, we used to have a National Water Council, which brought together, people providing water, but also big businesses that were using water and advising experts We're saying in a report we need to bring that back. You're absolutely right, Mike. I mean, it's madness that we could live in the country which throughout the entire world everyone thinks Britain, they think about rain and water, and because we haven't taken a strategic long-term approach, people, we might be facing, as you say, more water shortages and the cost of this. I mean, in our report, a drought, severe drought in the next few decades could cost this country 1.8 billion per day. So the economic impact of this, if we don't get it right, could be significant as well. And we've got to prioritise. I think net zero is incredibly important. I don't think it's an either-or option, but you're absolutely right that we shouldn't be saying, oh, we can't build reservoirs because of this or because of that. We just need to crack on and do this stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. So we finally end on something we agree on. Thank you very much indeed. We'll come back to the water question as well with the panel, of course, because it's ridiculous, isn't it, that we have a country which is entirely soaking wet most of the year round. But people go, oh, I don't think you water your plants this summer, or don't wash the car, don't have any baths, it might be too dangerous. It's ridiculous, absolute madness.